Now we are live. Hola mi gente, ¿cómo estamos? ¿Qué tal? Y bienvenidos otra vez más a un directo en Código Morse. Este directo es muy especial porque tenemos a una invitada de Tiny Technical Tutorials. Tenemos a Amber acá, que es la creadora de ese canal. Y tendremos la entrevista en inglés, así que ahora voy a cambiar al idioma inglés. So, Amber, I wanted to start by thanking you for being here. This is my first time doing an interview in English, so I may make some mistakes, but I am pretty sure this is gonna turn out very well.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm very happy that you're here. I've seen your channel about AWS, mostly cloud and some Microsoft tools. And
Yeah.
that's why we are here today. We want to talk about the cloud and AWS. But first, I would like to, if you could introduce yourself very briefly to get to know my audience. Who are you and what do you do? Yes.
Yeah, sure. So, hi, everybody. I'm very excited to be here, and thank you for finding me, Martin, and inviting me. My name's
You're
Amber.
welcome.
Like Martin said, I have a channel here on YouTube called Tiny Technical Tutorials, and they're really meant to be very short, concise, bite-sized videos on how to do something technical. I do have quite a bit of AWS content as well as like Microsoft Office and that type of a thing. A fairly small channel, I guess, at this point, but growing. My
Yeah.
background, I went to school as to become a software engineer, and did that for several years, and then got more into the training part of it, and have also done a lot of program and project management in different software companies. So kind of a mix of things, but yeah, very excited to
Wow.
be here.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that sounds very exciting. And actually, yeah, you mentioned you went to the university, right? Sorry. Could you explain more? What did you study and how long was it?
Yeah, well, a lot of it was kind of self-taught originally. I didn't plan to go get a degree in computer science or anything like that. I was working a lot on computers at the time, and I just thought, I this makes sense to me. It was very logical and very rational and like
Yeah.
input and output. And I just thought I kind of like this computer thing.
Yeah.
And so I went and took, after just learning a lot on my own, I went to a community college and took some classes, like introduction to computers and programming languages and that kind of stuff. And I really liked it. I was also working full time the whole time, so it took me forever to take these classes. It took me years. And at some point, I just thought, well, I'm far enough along. I should just get my degree because I've done all of this work. And so,
Oh,
yeah, I eventually transferred to a 4-year university and got my degree. But yeah, a lot of it was just kind of learning on my own. And even today, I still just teach myself stuff to try to keep up. But yeah, it's finally got my degree in computer science and have been working in the field ever since. But yeah,
yeah,
I was kind of
congratulations.
yeah, I was kind of late, deciding on computers. I wasn't born like a lot of kids are today
Hmm.
onto a computer.
Hmm.
It was a little bit later in life when I figured it out. So yeah.
Yeah, so just to get to know more of your background, do you remember what was the first computer you ever used? If you recall, which operating system or yeah, just details.
I don't even so I didn't grow up with one at all. I didn't even have a TV in my house when I grew up. We had nothing. But I had two uncles, really cool uncles who they were living in California at the time and I was living in Arizona. So I didn't get to see them very much, but they had an old, I don't even know what it was, super old. It had the 5 1/4 inch floppy disk, like the super
Oh
old
yeah,
one.
floppy
Um,
disks.
the floppy disk for way back then.
Yeah, I
It was
also used one
probably
of them. Yeah,
yeah, it was crazy. I was probably 7 or 8 years old, but they had games on this disc, and so when
yeah,
I would
yeah.
go to visit, I got to play these games on this horribly old computer. But that was really it, and then I didn't, again, didn't have anything even at school. I think that there was a computer lab at school where we learned how to type, but it was nothing like, didn't have iPads or I'm feeling very old, by the
No,
way.
no, no, it's fine because
But
that's the point also of the. I mean, it's not the point of making you feel old, but to know different backgrounds that from people
yeah,
from different backgrounds can still jump into computer science, no
yes,
matter what age are you or where
yes,
will come
yeah.
you. That's
I
the
was
thing. Yeah.
I think I was probably 18, 19, 20 before I actually had a computer at home, like a desktop. And
Yeah.
it was back, the internet was getting popular and email and all that. So it was just for web surfing and writing emails and that kind of a thing. But yeah, so very late in the game
Yeah,
for
yeah, no,
me.
but
Um,
that's
but
absolutely fine.
yeah,
Actually, it's not so different as my experience because I also, I mean, I didn't have computer at home, but in the school there were these computers with games, and I think that's what got attached to
yes,
me first to
yeah,
the computers.
fun.
But then it wasn't until university, first year, I mean college,
Yeah.
18 years old, I learned the first computer program. But even then, I didn't pursue computer science. My background is called
Okay.
electrical engineering.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I jumped into computer science like when I was 23, I guess, like
Okay. Yeah.
more or
Similar.
less.
Yeah. Early
So
20s.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
interesting. Okay, yes. So you are a trainer, right? What do you do as a trainer in this field? That is a
I
very interesting
do.
question I have because
Yeah.
yeah, we want to know the other side. I mean, in my audience, mostly all of us are self learners or self
Okay.
taught. So, what do
Yeah.
you do to teach others?
Yeah. Well, that was something else that I just sort of fell into. So I was working as a developer for several years after I got out of school, and the company that I was working for at the time, they had their onboarding program. So basically, you join the company and you went through this. I think it was 6 weeks. It was this really intense training program to learn about the company and the technology and all that. Um, One of my instructors from that class just sent out an email one day. I've been at the company maybe 2 to 3 years, and he just sent an email out to all of the alumni and said, uh, "Hey, we're looking for a trainer in the training department." And I'm
Mm.
like, I I don't have any background in training, but how hard could it be, right? And so I applied for that position and I moved into the training department. And I felt like I had the technical skills already, but it was learning how to teach basically, and did everything from creating the content or standing in front of the classroom and teaching,
Okay.
or uh, you know all of the logistical things around travel and hotels, like just all that stuff that
Ah,
goes
you had to
around
do
training.
travel across the country.
Yeah, yeah, I used to almost live in Chicago practically. I would teach 2-week-long classes in Chicago a lot, and yeah, so a lot of it back when we did in-person stuff, and obviously a lot of virtual stuff and e-learning as well. So, but I've always taught technical people, so the software
Hmm.
engineers at the company, um, and then yeah, my company after that was a similar thing in the training department again,
Yeah.
and also doing more of the program management and project management and working with stakeholders and all of that kind of stuff. And then YouTube, obviously, kind
Hmm.
of a different format for training, but I feel like I'm pretty good at explaining things, or I
Yeah.
try to really make it simple and easy to understand. So,
Yeah, yeah, I would say so.
um,
I love your
yeah,
tutorials. I
oh,
like
thank
them.
you.
The ones about lambdas in AWS, I like them.
Yeah, just simple. Keep it simple. I think a lot of people, when you're an expert in something, it's hard to think like you're not an expert. It's hard to
Yeah.
think like a beginner again. And so I
Yeah.
try to really like, okay, if I didn't know anything about this topic, how could I?
It's about being empathetic and
Yes,
remembering, okay, what would I ask
right,
5 years ago or
right. When I
something?
was first learning, like, what was I asking? So, so yeah, it's kind of a range of things. My day job and YouTube and all of that. But I like it when learners, you see the light bulb, like, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah,
That's
that is
super
gratifying. I
satisfying.
mean, it's
Yeah.
satisfying exactly when you see that the spark of light in your students,
Yes.
like, oh God, I did
Exactly. I
something
did
or
that. I
something.
helped people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
that's
great.
amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, Amber, people is already saying hi. So, for example, Julio Mestica, saludos, Julio.
Julio.
They are greeting us from Mexico as well.
Nice. Hola.
Yeah, Manuel Guerrero. Buena, tío Morsa. Saludos de Santiago de Chile. Buena, buena,
Okay.
buena.
Yeah.
Ahí, so, people, quería decirles que hagan preguntas nomás. Yo las puedo traducir y se las hago a Amber. Así que podemos seguir traduciendo, pero por ahora voy a seguir haciéndole preguntas. So, let's continue. This one is about how do you keep up to date in this field? Because as we know, every year or maybe a couple of months, we are seeing new frameworks, even new languages, and so on. And some frameworks become obsolete. And yeah,
Yeah.
how do you keep up to this pace?
Oh, it's hard. It's
Yeah,
hard.
right.
Um, I actually think having a YouTube channel kind of forces me to stay
Mm,
up to date with things. Um, I mean, AWS changes constantly. Things that I knew a year ago are now totally gone, or it's
yeah, or the
totally
UI
different.
changes
The
sometimes.
UI changes every 2 months, yes.
Yeah,
So that kind of forces me to keep up with it. I think just having a job, working with other people that are really smart and really passionate about technology, they sort of force you to stay up to date as well. Um, I like to take a lot of certifications too. That also forces me to stay up with it. It just say, okay, like in 3 months, I'm going to take this certification, and so then
yeah,
you have to, right? There's a date there that you have to be accountable to.
yeah,
Um, I watch a lot of YouTube. I mean, I create on YouTube, but I just watch a lot of YouTube as well to stay up to date. Conferences. I haven't gone to conferences in a few years just because a lot of them stopped for a while, but that's another good way to stay up. If you have an employer especially that will send you to
yeah,
conferences, that's even
absolutely.
better.
And now that you have mostly
Yeah.
the chance to to attend virtually,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, well, a lot of them are free.
Yeah,
I know
exactly.
AWS reInvent has been virtual for the last, I think, 3 years now, 2 or 3 years.
All right, that's gonna be
All the
held
sessions are for
soon.
free. Yeah, that's coming up in a few weeks. I went to that one in person for several years, which was
Oh,
amazing.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big deal. But I'll probably go virtually this year.
Well,
So,
for me, I'm too far away to cross Atlantic. I mean, I
oh, that's a
already
big
do
trip.
that.
That's a
Yeah,
big
it's
trip.
quite of
Yeah,
a
yeah.
trip. Yeah. Oh, nice. So, talking about AWS then, what do you like about cloud computing? To introduce this topic, so cloud computing is getting more traction every month, every year. So, what do you like
Yeah.
about it?
I think it's just the power of it. When you think back, like when I got into computers, you had to have a physical server, sitting at your desk or in a back room or something like that, and you were very limited. You had one server or 10 or whatever, but it was very limited in what you can do. If you needed more processing power or more memory or whatever, you had to go buy more servers.
Uh,
And now in the cloud, it's basically limitless. If you need 10 million servers, you can get
yeah,
10. Just you have
it's
all the processing
it
power, all the
sounds
memory.
ridiculous, but it's
Yeah,
true. It's like
it's
you can
true.
rent whatever you want and then just
Yeah,
dismiss it and you pay
yeah,
for what you
and
use. It's
done. Yeah.
mind blowing, I think.
Yeah. So all of these really hard problems around, you know, artificial intelligence and machine learning and big data and space exploration, just where you needed all of this processing power or
Yeah,
data storage and all of that, that's possible now where we couldn't do it, even
yeah.
10 or 20 years ago. So, yeah, I think it's just the power and how easy it is, and you don't have to have, a server sitting under your desk anymore.
Exactly. So you
Yeah.
don't need to provision your own machines. It's flexible and
Yeah.
very powerful. You need
Powerful.
what you pay for what you use, and if you need a big server for just one day,
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
rent it.
And then you shut it off. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So in that direction, so I wanted to ask you, how have you? I don't know if you are up to date with the market right now, but how would you say are the cloud skills are now on demand? Are they on demand? Is it worth pursuing a career in this? Are there job
Yeah.
opportunities?
Yeah. I think cloud is to that point where it's just sort of expected that if you work in tech, that you understand how cloud works, that you have, AWS or Azure or Google Cloud Platform. It's just kind of a given, just like if you're a developer, you know a programming language. Now if you're a developer, you know how to work in the cloud. Um,
Yeah,
it's definitely, I think, kind of a cycle that we're going through. 5 years ago, it was a little bit harder to find people with those skills. Now I think it's a little bit more common, and 10 years from now, that'll just be how everybody operates. But
yeah,
um,
it's true.
yeah, so I think it's just one of those things you just sort of have to know. I actually have a friend that works at AWS, and I was chatting with him over the weekend, and he said something like only 10% of workloads are in the cloud today, meaning there's a lot of opportunity for companies
Wow.
that are still moving to the cloud. So I don't think it's going away anytime soon.
Yeah, That's
Um,
very important actually, and I want to translate
yeah,
that to the audience. So, lo que dice
yeah,
Amber ahora es que la nube tiene mucho potencial porque solo el 10% de los servidores mundiales, por decirlo así, están en la nube, o sea que falta el resto, el 90%, y faltan personas que tengan esas habilidades en cloud para mover toda esa carga a la nube. Así que es muy necesario tener ahora habilidades de cloud. Es muy necesario. So I was, oh, someone said hi to you. Hi there, Tiny. Right now, don't
I
do it. Maybe it's one from your audience, maybe.
I don't know.
And okay, here we have a comment from Miguel Angel. It is assumed that the developer should already know how to work with these cloud services. Yeah.
Yeah,
So now more than it's a nice to have, it's more like you need this skill.
yeah, yeah.
um, Julio Mestica, in the future with the codeless, do we developers will be necessary? Oh, do you know something about codeless? I'm not sure what he means, but I think he fears that we gotta get replaced
The
with AI,
robots.
something like that. How do you see that? Do you see that like a possible scenario for that?
I don't know. I remember when cloud became a big thing.
Hmm.
The people that were in charge of doing infrastructure and networking and all that, it was the same concern of like, oh, well, our jobs are going away because Amazon is doing our jobs now. So I think every time there's kind of this big shift in technology, there's a fear that, the machines are taking over and we don't have, you know, job security. I don't think
Yeah.
that's true. I mean, in the cloud, if you think of just all of the additional jobs that are out there now, like security, data, machine learning, artificial intelligence, all these new things that have been possible by the cloud, um, jobs have just kind of shifted, I think. So there's definitely, I think, AI as far as coding will be a thing. I think it'll be a lot easier to write code.
Hmm.
Um, I just feel like stuff is going to shift a little bit, and there's still going to need to be people to
Yeah.
put all the pieces together. And I mean, even right now, if you need to write an algorithm for something, you can go out on, Google it and copy and paste it in. So I think
Y-
to some extent
Yeah.
that's already changed how we're how we're
Yeah,
working and how we're coding.
actually, that's
Yeah.
true. You just have to understand the theory in the background, but you don't have to manually implement a merge sort, for example. The
Yeah.
implementation is already
Yeah.
there. You
It's
have
already
to
been done.
know what is
Yeah.
a merge sort and when do you need it.
Right.
But
Right.
that is kind of an automation that is still manual, but it's still one piece of the process is already done. So
Right.
the more pieces,
Right.
the less. But I see yes. So like you said, I don't see like in the near future we are gonna get replaced, but I see those as tools to support us to code even faster, maybe.
Right. Right. Yeah. Spend more of your time solving the really hard problems and putting the
Yeah.
piece in, like you just said, knowing when to use what. Because I don't know,
Ex-
maybe the robots will figure that out eventually, but
yeah.
it's just repetitive stuff that you don't like doing anyways. And I think it's fine that the robots do that. But yeah, I think the more interesting, complicated, hard problems probably
Yeah,
need
I mean,
humans
at the
for
end of the
those.
day,
Yeah,
we want to automate the boring stuff and we just want
exactly.
to get to work in the
Yeah.
interesting stuff. Hey,
Well said. Well said.
you
Yeah.
you won a new follower, I wanted to tell you. So I don't know. No. I skip one question. This one. I am a native Morsa follower, but now I get into tiny followers. So eso quería,
Welcome.
eso quería decirle, gente, entren al canal de Tiny Technical Tutorials, ahí pueden suscribirse y eso, apoyen su canal, vayan a comentarle también ahí a sus tutoriales de AWS. Okay, so I think we can continue with our questions and then we can go back to the comments. Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about certifications now.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about AWS certifications and which one do you have?
I've always been a big fan of certifications in general. Um, I don't think they guarantee that you're going to get a job or make a ton of money or whatever, but the way I see it is if an employer is looking at you versus somebody else and you're
Yeah,
pretty equal everywhere,
yeah,
but you have a certification, I think they
yeah.
only help you. So I've always had lots of certifications. For AWS, I have solutions architect, sysops, cloud practitioner, machine learning, and Alexa. Alexa actually has
Wow.
been retired, but I got that one when it was still out there. Um,
Oh, look at you can, how do you say, brag that you have a
I have a
certification that's
retired
not
one, I know.
available. Hey, I
Um,
wanted to ask you about which one? Oh, you have a specialty, the machine learning one.
yeah,
How
the
was
machine
it
learning one.
in terms of
Yeah,
difficulty? Was it more
it
difficult than the
was
associate level?
it was super difficult. It's the hardest certification I've ever taken, to be honest with you.
Wow.
I
And
studied
respect.
so much.
Congratulations.
Um, and I've forgotten so much of it, to be honest with you, but a lot of it, and it was a fairly new certification. I think it only been out maybe a year or two, and machine learning in general is fairly new, so it's not like there's tons of study material out
Yeah.
there. So
And probably it's gonna get updated, the
yeah,
certifications.
it might be updated now. I might need to go recertify, but yeah, it was tough. Uh,
How long did you prepare? Do you remember, more or less?
Oh, I mean, months. I was also creating a course for it,
Yeah.
so I was kind of creating the course at the same time I was doing my
That's a
studies.
very good motivation,
Um,
you know? It's
that's why
like
I did it. I thought I have to
you
have the certification if I'm
yeah.
teaching it. Um,
You're
so that,
testing your content. If you
yeah,
pass your
exactly,
certification, the
exactly.
content works.
Yeah, it worked. I passed.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I mean, it was months, but it was very intense because I was creating content and studying and all of that. Yeah, I probably need to go back and just refresh on that one. But yeah, certifications in general, I think are good. They do force you to learn stuff.
Yeah.
You
That's
know,
why I also like them. It's like
yeah,
having a clear goal. It's like,
exactly.
okay, I can study without pursuing a certification, but for
Right.
me personally, it gets much easier to have a clear goal. And
Yes.
then you feel like a reward sensation when you pass it. It's
Right.
like
Like,
it
I got
produces some
something.
kind of, I don't know, it makes something here that
Right.
says,
It
oh,
was worth
okay, I
it.
should get the
Yeah.
next one.
Yeah. Yeah. And it puts some structure around it too. Of like, okay,
Mm,
these are the things that I need to know and I need to study versus just here's a million things I could learn if I wanted to. It just makes it a little bit more focused, I think. So, yeah, I would recommend certifications for anybody on
yeah.
anything pretty much because it helps differentiate you a little bit, I think.
Yeah,
So yeah,
differentiation. More now it's how do you say it? Now it's needed more than ever, I would say, because there are more and more people jumping into
yes,
programming, into IT. So then how are you
yeah,
gonna differentiate
yeah,
between other hundreds of candidates? I mean,
yeah,
then what's left? Languages and certifications, and maybe personal projects.
yeah,
And about learning, I wanted to ask you, what could you recommend us for learning? Because there are courses in Udemy, there's the official documentation, but you have many sources to choose, and newcomers may get a little bit confused where to start. What would you say?
yeah. Well, my channel is a good place to start.
Yeah,
Of
go to
course.
Tiny
Oh,
Technical Tutorials. Vayan a su canal, chicos, ahí pueden aprender AWS.
no, I'm totally kidding. I do have
No,
a
it's
cloud
true.
practitioner course, though, that's about 7 hours long that covers kind of the basic. Yeah, I think you have to start with the basics. If you just, it can be
Okay.
overwhelming, to be honest. And so,
Okay, let me
um,
translate that. So,
yeah,
Amber tiene el curso de Cloud Practitioner para que se preparen para la certificación, que es la más introductoria para todos los que vienen de otras áreas y no saben nada de IT ni de AWS. Pueden ver su contenido en el canal de Cloud Practitioner. Yeah, you can continue, Amber.
okay. Um, but that'll teach you the core concepts of, only paying for what you use and elasticity, being able to have all the resources you want or not, and
Hmm.
having things highly available, just like the concepts that would apply to any cloud, whether it's Azure or AWS or anything like that.
Actually, they are
Um,
pretty cloud general content that is also good to
yes,
know because then you
yes.
can switch cloud technology easier if you want.
Exactly, exactly. And then it goes into some of the core services around compute and networking and storage and security, and all of those again are going to be all of the cloud
Yeah.
providers have something similar. So that's a good baseline. Um, YouTube, even outside of my channel, there's tons of stuff out there. AWS, if you just go to aws.training,
AWStraining.com
yeah,
maybe. AWStraining.com, sí.
yeah, they have. I mean, hundreds of things out there, totally free digital stuff. They have webinars as well, occasionally. They have
Hmm.
a certification prep webinar. I mean, there's so much out there for free. Um, Books, I like books, but I find that books get really out of date really fast, so you have to
Yeah,
keep buying the
they
books.
be
Um,
updated like every year or every 2
yeah,
years. That's
yeah,
true.
exactly.
Even the official documentation sometimes get out of date for
Uh,
a couple of months, and then someone has to report it, and then
Yes, yes. So I tend to do online stuff and, um, like I said, YouTube
yeah,
videos. Yeah, there's just so much out there. Um,
yeah, there's a lot.
you got to keep up with it.
Yeah, so how about refreshing the chat? I think people's been writing. So Reynaldo, hey Tiny, what do you think about Kaggle? Ah, this is a data science platform. I think you
Yeah,
know
yeah.
also.
I love Kaggle. I mostly just use it for data sets, if I need to find some data out there to run some problem
Oh,
on. They do actually have training, various training things that you can do though, kind of tutorials. Yeah, I'm a big fan. And as far as I know, everything is free on Kaggle too. I don't think I've ever
yeah, I think
tried
so.
anything.
Maybe there's some special content, but I've never been there. I think
Yeah.
the free content is more than enough to get
Yep.
started.
Yep. Big fan. I like it a lot.
Okay, yeah, yeah. You got another new subscriber, and
Thank
here
you.
another one, Julio Mestica. Gracias, Julio, ahí soportando ahí.
Excellent. I'm gonna have so many subscribers when we're done.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, here's someone talking about age. For example, Anjo says, I have always had, lo voy a leer en español también. Siempre he tenido la duda o el miedo de empezar de lo siguiente. Si es que la edad importa, voy a terminar la universidad a los 28 para tener alguna oportunidad laboral en la programación. Dice que le interesa el blockchain. So I hope I didn't confuse your mind, but you learned, you read it in English, right?
Yeah, yeah. Angel, I was 28 when I graduated college as well, so it took me forever. I was, working full time, supporting myself, and yes, it makes me feel a little bit old sometimes, but
No.
totally, totally possible to start at age 28, or even if you're already in a career and you just
Yeah,
want to change careers. That's people do that all the time in 30s, 40s, 50s.
exactly.
You're
Even
never
in
too
the
old.
40s, I've
Um,
known people in the 40s jumping into
yeah,
programming, and there's opportunity to them. I always say them in my channel, okay, prepare your good portfolio. The most important thing is the attitude to keep
yep,
learning, because that
yeah,
is the one skill you do have to have. Always keep learning,
yes,
keep up, being
yes,
updated, and so on.
yeah.
And if you show that willingness to keep learning and to keep solving problems, I think you can
Yep.
higher your chances, increase your chances a lot, and then get a job.
Yeah.
Yeah, so age is not really an
Yeah.
important role.
And
Yeah,
honestly, I think when you're a little bit older, you just have more life skills and people
yeah,
skills,
soft
and
skills
you're
and
just more mature in a lot
emotion,
of ways. Yeah.
emotional
Um,
intelligence. That is also
all
very
of that stuff
important.
just
Exactly,
you
or
get
maybe
better with age, right? So
maybe leadership skills,
yeah,
or who
yeah.
knows.
Yeah, exactly. And blockchain, I think, is going to be just the next big thing. I know we're going through some issues now with cryptocurrency, but but
Yeah,
blockchain as a technology, I think, is amazing. I think there's lots of opportunity there.
people
Um,
from the blockchain world would say now it's time to buy because it's cheap.
right, by the dip.
Yeah, exactly, before
Yeah,
the dip.
yeah,
Okay, so now let's talk about portfolios. So, because I think that it's a very important topic for newcomers, like, okay, they don't
yes,
have job experience, so they don't have to show, they don't know how to show, hey, I know this, I know that. What would you
yeah,
say should have a portfolio for people looking first job in the cloud?
yeah. I think this is so important. Again, going back to just differentiating yourself. Um, it, it's always good to have something public that you can show, a website or something that you can, or a GitHub, stuff that you've written in GitHub or whatever.
Yeah,
Always good that you can show stuff like that. For AWS, go build a website, even if it's just a static website in an S3 bucket, if that means anything to you, or
yeah,
something with Lambda or Amplify, just something public that you can send people to is huge. But then I think just in general, uh, establishing yourself as an expert of some kind. So you could write a blog, you could There's platforms like medium.com where people write articles about how to do
Medium. I always
whatever.
mention that also
Medium.
part of the
Yeah.
portfolio,
Yeah,
writing blog.
exactly. Yep.
Um,
You can even just go out and go out to Stack Overflow or some other forum and just
yeah,
answer people's questions and become known as that guy or that gal who has the answers and they research
that's
the
true.
answers and
I also mentioned that getting Stack
yeah,
Overflow points,
yes.
that is another way to show off your skills.
Yeah, yeah, show your skills, show your and it also just shows that you can take initiative and you're motivated and
Exactly.
maybe
And
it's
support
evenings and
others.
weekends you're out there, answering questions, which is huge.
Yeah.
Start a YouTube channel.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
always say that it's
Yeah.
basically I love your tips because are the same I gave always.
Okay.
Like write a blog
We
on
didn't even share.
Medium,
Yeah.
exactly, or post your projects in GitHub or create a YouTube channel
Yes.
because
Yeah.
teaching is learning, right? Teaching
Yep.
is learning.
Yes. They say you don't really know something until you can explain it to somebody else. So if you're
Yeah,
teaching it
uh,
or writing it or whatever, yeah, it's
yeah,
huge.
and to somebody else that is 5 years old.
Yeah, right, a 5-year-old or your grandma or your mom or something like that.
Yeah,
So yeah,
exactly. That's
that's
very nice. Yeah, good tips.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this one is another question that I get frequently asked. If you ever have to program, or do you need these skills of programming to get into the cloud?
No. There's so many different jobs in the cloud. So if you think of all the jobs that you could do on premises, whether
Hmm.
it could be writing code, but you might be dealing with infrastructure or networks or security or whatever. It's basically just taking all of those skills and moving them to AWS or Azure or whatnot. So if you wanted to program, you know, on your desktop, you can now do that in AWS. But if you didn't want to do that, then there's lots of opportunity out there. There's actually uh, Amazon has a course called Job Roles in the Cloud. It's like a 30-minute free thing, and it kind of
Okay.
goes through the different
Job roles in the
roles.
cloud. Ok, chicos, vayan a
Yeah.
ver ese video,
Yeah.
roles en AWS, y van a ver que hay algunos que no necesitan programación. Ok.
I thought I had a link for it here, but anyways, it kind of goes through the different things that you could do out there. But all of that said, I do think um, the thing I like about knowing a language, any kind of language, is that you sort of understand how computers work. You understand algorithms and control flow and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Um, these days, I would say if you had to pick one or two, probably JavaScript. Everything's done in
Yeah.
JavaScript these days.
Yeah.
Python for some basic scripting stuff.
Yeah.
Object-oriented like C# or Java, something like that. So it wouldn't hurt you, but you don't have to be like this amazing programmer to work in AWS. You don't have to
Yeah.
program at all. Um,
Actually, there are roles that are like more sysadmin oriented, where they have to
exactly.
manage systems, patch,
Yes.
take care of security. They have to be more knowledgeable in other topics like networking, firewall
Yeah.
security,
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, they
operating system, and maybe they have to write a little bit of batch, but
right.
actually they must have to know a lot of Linux and stuff, and not
Yeah, Linux,
necessarily being a
Linux
proficient Java
networking.
developer or Python developer. No.
Yeah. Yeah, really depends what you want to do, but if you don't want to write code at all, you can still work in AWS.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
moral of this question.
Yes.
Si quieren trabajar en AWS o con roles parecidos a AWS, no necesitan programar. Yeah, very important one.
Wow.
So this is more like a personal question, because I'm in the future in my job I have to get into infrastructure as code. So
Okay.
I wanted to ask you if you have ever done that, or maybe you do this regularly, and which one is your preferred tool?
So companies I've worked with, my last company, we were in AWS, and so we're using CloudFormation all the time.
Oh,
For
CloudFormation,
yeah,
interesting.
CloudFormation. Um, for my personal stuff, to do a YouTube video or something like that, it's
Yeah.
just so simple that I just go create a new EC2 instance or something. So I don't do a lot of it personally. Terraform, I know, is the other really big one out there to
Yeah,
do
it's more loved
all of
than
them.
CloudFormation, I know, because
Yeah.
it updates quicker than CloudFormation, I know.
Yeah, yeah, and you can use it with, Azure and GCP and whatnot.
Yeah,
So,
also it's like more portable, so to say.
yeah, yeah. So I think it, Terraform would be good for anything. AWS and CloudFormation is going to be your best bet. But yeah, just day to day, I don't really use them a lot. But if you're in a large team or a large company, you need that repeatability and check it
Yeah.
into source control and that kind of stuff. Then yeah, hugely important.
Yeah, exactly. So now let's talk about other clouds because maybe you have also seen how stuff works in others like GCP or Azure. And lastly, I wanted to ask you, why did you choose AWS? Or maybe AWS chose you? I don't know.
Yeah. Um, my first cloud was actually Azure. So in a
Mm,
previous life, the company I worked for was owned by Microsoft, and so
okay.
we were all Microsoft. And I actually was Microsoft has their big conference every year. It's called Microsoft. It's Build now is their big conference, but it used to be called um, PDC, I think, Professional Developer. Way back in the day, I was there when they announced Azure. It was this big deal.
Wow, you saw the first
Yeah.
announcement of Azure. Okay.
It was a big deal. And then taught it for several years as well. So I've done a fair amount in Azure, but
Wow.
the company I was working for about 5 or 6 years ago, they were AWS, and so I had to shift over to AWS, which I thought would be
Um,
kind of difficult, just because I knew Azure so much better. But I personally find AWS to be much more intuitive somehow, just the UI and how they
mm.
name things. I don't know, might just be me, but I found AWS really easy to pick up as
And
compared
that
to
is very,
Azure.
it's very
Um,
interesting that you say this because for me it's
yeah,
very interesting. I've seen Azure just once or twice, so I don't have a real sense of it. But
yeah,
I would say as it is newer than AWS, I would hope that they make something better because AWS is also has this problem. It's been for so long that sometimes it's difficult to make some changes, you know?
yes,
But
yeah,
if Azure started later, then why isn't it better? So it's cool
more,
that I mean,
yeah.
it's cool that you found AWS better than Azure than in
I
terms of UI or
won't tell
or.
Microsoft, but that's just my personal. I haven't done much with GCP. I mean, I know what they are, but I've never gone and done anything out in Google Cloud Platform. But Azure, AWS, pretty familiar with both of those, and I like AWS a little bit better. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I must say I also like it. I don't know what makes me like it, but it's
yeah,
like, well, I think the documentation is pretty good. The community is huge.
yeah.
I don't know if you use Reddit, but I'm subscribed to the AWS Reddit topic, and there
Uh,
are plenty of conversations that are very interesting and talking about new products that AWS launches.
yeah,
For
yeah.
example, recently I learned that RDS now supports GB3 kind of EBS volumes.
Oh,
So
I didn't
the
know that.
EBS volumes, their GB3 was being available since a long while, but RDS didn't have that, and now it
Oh,
has
okay.
it, for example, and
Yeah.
stuff
Oh,
like that.
cool.
I get into the feed. I mean, I wouldn't get this news if I wasn't subscribed to
Yeah.
this Reddit topic, so I recommend
Another good
it.
way. Yeah, good way to stay on top of stuff.
Sí, eso
Yeah.
chicos, si quieren saber más de AWS, les recomiendo también suscribirse al Reddit de AWS. Okay. I think I have another comment here from the chat. Miguel Angel dice, I think GCP is the easiest to understand
Okay.
intuitively. That doesn't not happen to me with AWS. Puede
Interesting.
ser
Yeah.
cierto, maybe true. I haven't been so much in GCP. I think once I did something in BigQuery, but I found it very cool, but then I didn't touch it again. So I
Yeah.
don't know how better, if how, yeah, the experience. I cannot say it's for me it's better or not. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so yeah. Now, well, back to your career as a trainer. Yeah, as you have taught many people, I wanted to ask you, what is the thing that make struggle the most your students? Or have you seen like a pattern, like you say, oh yeah, I've seen this, but I know how to tackle this. Is there something like that?
Yeah. I've actually found that it's usually not a technical problem. It's usually a soft skills problem, like
Yeah,
working as
okay.
a team. So a lot of classes I've taught have been multiple weeks, and you're in a project team actually building something. And so, and I think a lot of us are drawn to computers because we like to work by ourselves, we're kind of
Yeah,
introverted or whatever. Um,
exactly. Yeah.
but in the real world, you have to work with people, whether they're testers or another developer or managers, whatever. You have to work with people, and I think it can be sometimes challenging when you're just so used to working by yourself. So that's one. Knowing when to ask for help, especially in these longer classes that I would teach, people would be stuck on something for 2 or 3 days, and I would never know about it, and at that point, they're just so far behind that they can't catch up, and that's true in
Uh,
the real world too. You don't wanna be stuck on a problem for 2 or 3 days without doing it with a
you
team or
mean they
something.
didn't reach out for help?
Yeah, no, they're just like, I'm gonna fix it myself because 'cause they're embarrassed,
Oh,
to ask questions or
no.
something. So that's, I think, just a skill to ask for help and to
Yeah.
recognize that we're all still learning, and that's totally okay. Um, so stuff like that, managing your time, making sure that you are meeting your deadlines, and you can estimate how long something's going to take, and that just takes
Whoa,
practice.
estimations.
But yeah, estimation.
We are
Uh,
dealing with that now at my work, and it's we are just starting from scratch, is tracking whatever we invest now, just to have a
yeah,
reference. But I must say, I hate it. I
it's
hate
difficult.
estimations.
It's really
It's
difficult.
very, very difficult. There's always
Yeah,
something unexpected, and then you say,
yeah.
"Oops, I'm gonna take twice as I expected." Yeah,
Yeah, it takes practice, but that's something no matter what job you're in, whether you're, managing or you're an individual contributor or whatever, that's super important just to kind of know how long stuff's going to take, and if you're missing a deadline or you have a problem, communicating that up. So usually issues are more around the communication and people,
yeah,
working with people and all that. I haven't really found a common technical issue. Most of those can be worked through. You find the documentation or whatever.
yeah,
But
exactly.
I
Soft
think,
skills, soft
yeah, the soft
habilidades
skills, I think.
blandas. Yeah, so
Yeah,
habilidades blandas, gente. Eso es lo que
yeah,
dice al final que lo más importante para los principiantes es también no dejar de lado las habilidades blandas, saber preguntar y no quedarse atascado por tanto tiempo y eso, saber interactuar y con otra gente y compartir, trabajar en equipo, teamwork also. Yeah. Okay, so I think I have another question for you from Luis Eduardo. I think we kind of talked about this, but maybe if you had to do another certification, which one would you do in the future? One that would be not so easy, for example, or do you have some already in mind one of the certifications? Yeah,
um, yeah. Machine learning was definitely
yeah,
definitely the
it was
hardest
very
for me.
hard that you
Um,
mentioned.
I'll probably eventually. So right now I have my AWS Architect Associate level certification, and professional level is the next level beyond that. So I'll probably get that eventually.
The
Um,
professional, yeah, maybe that is also hard, right?
I would
I
think so. And
maybe
and
it's easier than the machine learning one.
it might be. I don't know.
because because I think the machine learning one is made for people that has technical background. I mean,
Yeah,
the
yeah, like
solutions
data
professional,
scientists and
I
yeah,
know, I think it's oriented to solutions architect that may not come from a programming world, but for
yep,
machine learning, you have to understand kind of
yeah,
training algorithms, a little bit of maths or
yes,
statistics. It's
yep,
like pretty tough and yeah, so hardcore
yeah, yeah.
university stuff maybe.
Yeah, I think the architect is probably even professional, I think is probably easier than machine learning.
Yeah,
So that'll
maybe.
probably be my next one.
Yeah.
There's specialty certs for database and networking and security and all of that. I don't Probably the professional architect will be my next one, or refresh
Yeah.
my machine learning one eventually. Yeah,
Yeah, you have the option of refreshing.
yeah.
I'm gonna do the professional whenever my associate expires. So I'm
Oh,
also doing the
smart.
professional, but I have like 2 years to prepare myself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That
Yeah.
one I think it is. I mean, all of them, they say you're supposed to have a certain amount of hands-on experience and, all of that.
Yeah.
I
No,
think
I don't think
technical
that's
training.
mandatory. For example,
Yeah,
for the associate, they expected to have 1 year or
yep,
2 years of experience in AWS.
yeah.
And I remember I did the first one with 6 months of experience, and that
Okay.
was enough. Or
Yeah,
maybe
that's the
just doing
guideline.
the cloud practitioner and then jumping straight into the associate level is possible.
Yep, yep.
Also interviews, says Rodolfo Santiago. Saludos, Rodolfo.
Thank
Very,
you.
very nice. They are supporting us. Yeah. Okay, so talking about study and technical, no, how do you say techniques for studying or stuff like that? Strategies for studying. Do you
Yeah.
have recommendations for self-learners, self-thoughts?
I think the most important thing is just to do it, to do the hands-on work. It's sort of like
Mm,
I don't know how many of you drive a stick shift, a manual car. If you've ever had to learn how to drive a manual stick shift car, but
mm,
somebody can tell you how to do that all day long until you actually get in the car and you
yeah,
do it. Like that's the only way you're going to learn it. And I think that's true of so many things in life. You just have to go do it. You can watch videos, you can look at PowerPoint slides all day long, but until you just go do the thing, it's probably you're not going to remember it and you're not going to
yeah.
learn. So I would say
So
yeah, whatever you're doing, whether it's
put it
YouTube
into
or
practice.
book,
Sí,
just go do it.
sí,
Yeah,
lo que
that's
dice acá Amber es importante. Hay que poner en práctica lo que uno estudia, o sea, usarlo, no solamente que hace la teoría, porque si no se olvida. What I said is, you forget what you don't put into practice. It's like
so true.
you read and then it gets the catch,
Gone.
gets the lead very easily,
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
You
the
have to
cache goes
commit.
away.
Yeah, you have
I
to
like that.
commit it to the hard drive, just
I
using
love
the
that.
skills.
I love that analogy. Yeah, has to go on the hard drive. Cache, just gone. Yep.
Yeah, very, very
Um,
nice. So yeah,
yeah.
put into practice and yeah,
Yeah. And just do your own side project. Like if you're out on YouTube following a video or something, that's great. But then take that and be like, oh, what if I do this? And what if I hook into this service or whatever? Try to do things on your own just to figure them out because that'll make them stick as well.
exactly. Like if you're learning EC2 instances, then launch one by yourself. Try changing configurations. I don't know, changing different OS or
Yeah.
connecting to it via SSH
Yep.
or system managers.
Exactly.
Yeah, like playing with the thing. Like playing, I think in playing with the stuff with the toys in AWS, one learns more than
Yeah.
reading a documentation.
Yes. Yep. It's huge.
Uh, hey, about university, a lot of people ask me in this channel, what are you missing if you're not going to university? Because many of them are self-taught or don't have money to afford college. In
Yeah.
South America, mostly in Chile, it's so expensive to study. Maybe in the US also, you need the scholarships
Super
sometimes.
expensive. Yeah. Super
Yeah,
expensive.
or you have to pay the debt of studying over the years.
Yes. Yeah. I
So
have thousands
people,
of dollars in loans. Yeah.
exactly, people now choose sometimes just don't going to not going to the university, but you were there. So what do you say you would miss from it if you don't go there?
Yeah, I think about this a lot because, like I said, it took me a long time to get through university, and I had this conversation in my head all the time of, is it worth it? And even today, I look back and say,
Ah,
is
you
it
even
worth it?
question
Would
if
I
it
do it
was
again?
interesting. Yeah.
um, I think from a technical skill perspective, there's really nothing I learned in university that I couldn't learn reading a book or anything like that. I mean, I
Hmm.
learned a lot, but that stuff I think you can learn in so many places these days. I think the thing that, again, it kind of goes back to the softer skills. I think
Yeah.
if you go to university, it shows that you can stick to something, you can finish. It's hard, and if you were able to get through it and get that piece of paper, it shows that you can
Yeah.
stick to it. You're accountable. You're a hard worker.
Yeah.
Um, Employers like to see that, obviously, that you're responsible and you can do hard things and all of
It's
that.
pretty much like your first project. I mean, it takes four
Yeah,
years or even
exactly.
6 years sometimes, and you finish
Yeah.
it. It's like, okay, I finished a 4 year process. A big
Right, like,
deal.
you stuck to it and you did it even though it was difficult. So I think that just the mental toughness and having
Mm,
deadlines and turning in your assignments, like, all of that translates to the real world. So I think employers especially like to see that. If you wanna be self-employed and have your own business, less important, but employers like to see that you can stick with something and you can be
yeah.
responsible. Um, I also think just, uh, kind of learning by immersing yourself for however many years, you kind of learn to think in a certain way and problem solve in a certain way, especially with computers. You're taking a lot of math and, algorithms and whatever. So it changes how you see the world and it changes how you think about stuff. Um, you could obviously get that elsewhere, but I guess my point is if you can't go to university because it's stupidly expensive, which it is, or you just don't want to, or you don't have the time, um, I think find other ways that you can show that you're responsible and you can stick to things and you're
Exactly.
accountable and like all of that. I think you get that in school, on top of the technical stuff. So find another way to get that, whether it's having your own side company, side
Yeah,
gig or
side
something like
business
that. Yeah,
or
a
working for
portfolio, the stuff
free.
we talked about. Yeah.
Working for free, that's one of the ideas I saw recently. Like, okay, you don't go to
Yes.
the university, but you can start working earlier then because people
Yes.
is still studying with the 22, for example, and then you
Yeah.
may already start working, and you can even start doing things for free just
Yep.
for the sake of experience, and
Yes.
then you get a lot of feedback, and yeah, you can
And you're
start.
learning and
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, websites like Fiverr and Upwork, all the freelance websites, just go out there. You're not going to make a ton of money probably, but if you can get some projects and that experience, that's
Oh,
huge.
I didn't
Be an
know that.
intern
So
and
there
stuff.
are websites
Yeah.
for freelancers. So to get
Yeah.
it's like a network for job seekers
Yep.
and
Exactly. And it's
employers. Okay,
projects
okay.
basically. Like, oh, this person needs something built in AWS, so you can go say, oh, I can do that. And like I said, you're probably not going to make a ton of money at first, but it's a really good way to get experience and build that portfolio, like we were
Yeah.
talking about. Um,
Wow,
so
I
yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah,
I wanna translate that because I like that too. So,
yeah.
hay unos sitios web, ahí se los vamos a dejar más adelante, en donde pueden encontrar trabajos que ofrecen para freelancers. Si es que no tienen experiencia y quieren encontrar un portafolio rápido así, pueden tomar esos trabajos, hacer una página web o lo que sea. Hay muchas oportunidades ahí. Hacen trabajitos que duran 2 semanas, quizás 3 semanas, proyectos chicos, y ahí ganan experiencia rapidísimo para después tener un trabajo ya más estable, con un currículum más elaborado. Very, very nice. It's a good
Yeah,
one. Oh, you left some
whole
links.
websites in the chat. Yeah, there's a
I'm
lot
gonna
more out
paste
there.
that because,
Yeah.
yeah, it's important on my channel. The audience is gonna thank you. Ok, gente, esto es lo que les decíamos. Tienen eso y también Amber me dejó otro, que acá es freelance. Lo vamos a dejar acá. Sí, también tienen esa, freelance.com, ahí pueden buscar como estas ofertitas de trabajo que quizás no pagan mucho, pero para empezar a rellenar experiencia en ese currículum vacío que tienes, te va a servir bastante. Después vas a poder tener muchas chances de tener un trabajo ya con contrato. Um, Okay, Amber, here's a question that I had prepared, but actually someone already asked it, so I think I'm gonna just jump into it. So Julio Mestica questions something that also concerns me. What do you think about boot camps? I mean, there is a controversy, or maybe not even more, but I know when boot camps came to be popular like 5 or 6 years ago, they were under question.
Mm.
So what do you think about it?
Yeah, I think this has changed over time for sure.
Yeah.
I think they're great because they're focused, versus spending 4 years taking a bunch of stuff that's really not
Yeah,
interesting or relevant.
actually,
Um,
maybe there's a lot of stuff I learned electrical engineering that even for electrical engineering wasn't worth anymore. It's like so many
yes.
wasted time. Or I
Yeah.
don't know if wasted is the correct word, but time that could have been invested in other things better.
Right. Right. Yeah. Same for me. I mean, I took classes that just had nothing to do with anything that I was going to do for work. And I understand that they're trying to make you well-rounded and appreciate things outside of I know there's reasons for doing that at university, but I think boot camps and these really focused programs are really good for getting a job, for learning the skills you need in a job instead of all this other stuff. So I'm a big fan. I think employers are slowly starting to see that as a viable option. I know that I've interviewed people uh, more for entry level kind of
Yeah.
jobs. I don't think you're going to get a super senior job probably with just a boot camp, but I've definitely interviewed people and I think we've made offers, entry-level job offers to people that had gone through boot camp, but then they also, like we've been talking about, had a portfolio and some other projects that they had
Yeah,
done. They had interned somewhere else as well. So I think it's in combination with other stuff, I think it's definitely a good way to get your foot in the door and then just learn as much as you can and volunteer for projects and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think and again, especially since school is so expensive these days, if you can take a boot
and there
camp
are
and
some
be
bootcamps that are
really
insanely
focused.
expensive, but they have this
Yeah.
modality or availability that they pay. No, what is? You can pay whenever you get your work or something like that. Your first
Oh,
work.
nice. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of them actually help you get a job. They have some job
Yeah,
placement.
they also have a huge network that
Yeah.
maybe they can offer you straight away interviews
Yep.
to get a chance to get a
Yeah.
job immediately.
Yeah. I think it's a good.
Here comes a very interesting question that Julio made me. It's a question to me, but I want to hear your opinion, Amber, because here's the thing. I have now the enough experience to apply for a job in Amazon or one of the FANG companies I'm
Yep.
now. But I have thought about it a lot in the last couple of months that now I have a very comfortable life quality work. How do you say work life
Work-life
balance or
balance. Yep.
whatever? And I know if I get into funk, that's not gonna be the case anymore. I'm gonna have
Mm,
more deadlines. I'm gonna have to rush everything. Or
yeah.
I have this feeling like, for example, now I am located in Europe, working in a European company with other roles, other stuff. And I know in Silicon Valley, people is used to run the whole day, or that's the stereotype image
Yeah.
that I say, like I see, like, yeah, hustle, hustle, side hustle, and so on.
Yes.
And then what do you think about that? It's a wise choice to deny sometimes these kind of jobs just for the sake of having a better quality of life.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything you said about just hustle, go, 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 go. So I know several folks who work at Amazon and AWS and people who have come from Google and Facebook, Meta, all these places. It's definitely you're going to work a ton,
Mm,
and I think also which is I, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think as far as like building a resume and opening up doors for the future, there's lots of reasons to do both. I think at larger companies like that in particular, there's just so many people that you kind of focus on just doing one very narrow specific thing. Where I think at smaller companies, you get a chance to do a lot more things and kind of
mm.
wear different hats, which I think is good for learning and just developing and growing yourself. Um, but yeah, I'm kind of at a point in my career where like I do want more more of a
Yeah.
life outside of work. There's definitely a time where I was just working like 20 hours a day and just
Oh
crazy.
my God.
I'm kind of through that. Like I want to have my weekends free and log off at 5 o'clock and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
it really
exactly.
depends what you want to do. I think for sure there's benefits to working at a FANG company. The money is good and prestige and it's good on the resume and all that. But
Yeah.
if you just want to, you know, have a life
Yeah,
outside of work,
exactly.
that's important too. So I don't know. I would I'm not applying for a FANG company anytime soon. Um,
Yeah.
I
I mean,
kind of
I
feel like
think it's worth maybe at the very, very early stage of your career, or it depends
yeah,
of how much energy do you have as a person.
yeah,
Because myself, I feel like my energy bar is not so
yeah,
unlimited as it was 10 years ago, maybe.
yeah,
Now I really feel like a workday and I really just cannot concentrate anymore after 5 p.m.,
yep,
for
yep,
example. And
yeah,
actually, I start my day at 9. So I'm working a 7 hour day work
yep,
day.
yeah,
So 35 hours per week. And that is not a possibility I would have in any job, I think, or
yeah,
not so common in the USA companies, where
yeah.
also here in Europe, for example, I have 30 days of vacations. It's a lot, I think.
Nice. Yeah, yeah.
So
Take it.
the,
I think
the money is not as good as fan companies, but
Yep.
I think you win other stuff. You win
Yeah.
more time for yourself, which
Yep.
at the end of the day, time is more valuable, I guess.
Time is all you have. Yep.
Mm.
Very true.
Hey, Amber, I
Apologize for
think
the light. I can
no,
see
it's
the
no
light you put.
problem. It gives you like an
Like
angelical
I'm
halo
glowing.
or something. Yeah, it's very,
Yeah. I can't
very.
move the sun. Like, this is what happens in the afternoon, so
No,
apologies.
it's fine. And actually, that is what I wanted to say you. We are
Oh,
already on
goodness.
time. I mean, it was an incredible interview,
This
but
was so much fun. Your audience is so nice. Thank you.
yeah, and actually, I have a last question for you. Actually, Baptista 21 is a kind of funny question. If you can say some words in Spanish.
Lo siento. No.
That's
I
cute.
know, lo siento, no habla español. No, I was telling Martin before, my younger sister is very fluent in Spanish, and she every time we get together, she tries to teach me something, and so I'll learn little phrases, but then, like we were saying, if you don't use it, you forget. The
Yeah,
cache is gone,
exactly.
so
And
that's what's
actually, in
happened
the
with
US,
Spanish.
who talks? I mean, everyone talks Spanish, English. I mean, unless you go to Florida, maybe. But yeah,
Yeah. California? Yeah, I took French actually in college, but I wish that I had taken Spanish because I think it would be much more practical.
it
Um,
unlocks more
so
countries, I would say.
yes, absolutely. So no, sorry.
Yeah, but maybe in the future you can pick up with the Spanish. Who knows?
Exactly. Yeah, I'll have to find a good Spanish YouTube channel that I can follow.
Yeah, you can follow mine if you wish.
Yeah, yes, yes, I will do that. I think I've
Hey,
subscribed
Amber,
to it.
I'm just very happy that I had you here as a guest in my channel. It was very nice
Thank you so much.
learning from you. Thank you for your tips, for your experience, for sharing us with us very openly what's your
Yeah,
thoughts about learning about this field, and that it's never too late to jump in. And it's
yeah.
very encouraging words you gave to us. So thank you very
Wonderful. This
much.
was so much fun. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity. It's very nice to meet your audience. They're all very, very nice. Yeah, happy to do this again anytime. So
Yeah,
thank you.
so así que así nos despedimos, gente. Ha sido un magnífico vivo. Escriban todos los comentarios que quieran después cuando quede subido este directo y vayan a suscribirse al canal de Amber. Recuerden, Tiny Technical Tutorials, ahí se meten, se suscriben y le comentan ahí qué tal encuentran sus tutoriales y todo eso. Y nos vemos en un próximo directo.